Welcome, everybody. Good to be back in the studio. We're starting today with a much needed wake up call for Democrats. Donald Trump is, of course, president again. Kamala Harris lost. Democrats lost the House, lost the Senate in November. And we've been doing a sort of extended postmortem, figuring out what happened, why did it happen, can and how can Democrats win again. And I think this is maybe going to be a bit of a tough story for some to hear, especially now that there are many, many staffers for House and Senate Democrats that regularly listen to the show. But I think this has to be done. And I've been thinking as the months and weeks have gone, and we're now several months into Trump's term, thinking about what happened and what needs to happen. And let's see if we can make some sense out of it. And the whole point here is we have to avert disaster. And we have to avert disaster in the off-year elections this year, the midterms in 2026, and ideally be set up to win in 2028. If the Democratic Party's takeaway right now is Trump's governing right now is a disaster, and that's all we have to do and we're going to win, we're going to be fine, they've learned nothing. Now, let me kind of contextualize. I've never been a Democrat. I don't particularly like political parties. I see them as institutional machines, not all that different from corporations. Corporations' main goal is profit. Political parties' main goal is self-preservation, brand management, and making their candidates win. I vote for the better candidates, and often those candidates come from the Democratic Party. But I have no particular loyalty to the organization, and that's why I can say without hesitation that the Democratic Party is in a crisis right now. This is not a hit piece. This is a warning, because I want the Democratic Party to fix the problems so that this MAGA insanity doesn't continue. Now, think back to 2020. Joe Biden won essentially by not being Trump. He didn't need a deeply resonant agenda. He needed to be like a safe port in a storm. And in 2020, that was enough because Trump was in power. And the pitch was, let's remove Trump. We are the out party. Let's get rid of this guy. And it worked. In 2024, Democrats were incumbents. And simply pointing out Trump is a danger was not enough. It's a strategy that worked in 2020, but it collapsed under its own emptiness in 2024. Voters reasonably wanted to know, what are you doing for me? What are you fighting for? And too often, the answer from Democrats was either convoluted, forgettable, or non-existent. Two of the clearest failures in 2024 were on immigration and on crime. I've now talked with enough Democrats, Cory Booker, Gavin Newsom, Jamie Raskin, so many. We've talked now and had enough conversations that it's clear that there needs to be a more cohesive message than what Kamala Harris was offering. Vague statements and efforts to change the subject didn't work. Voters heard the Republican Party screaming about the border 24/7. Democrats responded by waving it off as either exaggerated or a distraction. Now, that was true. It was exaggerated and a distraction, but that alone was not persuasive to voters. Same thing about concerns regarding crime. We've talked about this before. People say, I'm seeing crime in my community. I need to hear what you're going to do. It is true that nationally, crime has been declining. Violent crime, nonviolent crime, property crime, that is absolutely true. But simply being told that didn't work, wasn't enough for voters. And so if you don't address people's fears, real or imagined, and some of them are imagined, I'm the first to tell you, if you don't address people's fears, they will turn to whoever does, even if that person is lying to them. Trump was lying to them, but it worked. So you don't win by ignoring concerns. You win by reframing them and responding with something better. And this is the part that people miss. I regularly interview Democratic senators, governors, members of the House of Representatives. On their own, they're very sharp. They handle criticism well. They know the facts. They're grounded and competent, which Republicans widely are not. But competence isn't a winning strategy. I wish it were. You can have 100 good answers and still lose if no one knows what your party stands for and who your party is for. And the Republican Party tells a dangerous story about who they're for. They say they're for the forgotten man, the real American, and the Democrats often offer bullet points that don't resonate. Democrats often believe that having the better policy is enough, and I wish it were, but it's not. Kamala Harris floated, you might remember, was it a tax credit or a deduction? I don't even remember which, and this is part of the problem. A tax credit or a deduction for small business startup costs. Good idea on paper. Fell flat. No one talked about it. No one felt anything when she would talk about that. And meanwhile, Trump promised tariffs and mass deportations and who the hell knows what else. And it was ridiculous. It made no sense, but people felt it. Republicans sell fantasy better than Democrats sell reality. And if a policy doesn't resonate, it's not a political asset, no matter how good a policy it is. It's like a tree falling in a forest and there's nobody there, so nobody hears it. Democrats love to say the right is obsessed with distractions, trans athletes, drag shows, woke M&Ms that aren't attractive enough for Tucker Carlson. And all of that stuff is true. These are tribal dog whistles. Dog, like a dog. But just saying these are distractions is not enough because people are attaching identity to these fights. You can't win by saying that's not important if people have already been convinced it's important, even if they've been convinced of that by lies. You win by saying, here is what we believe. Here's who we protect. Here's what actually matters in your life. The dismissals sound like elitism and they lead to losing. While the world is falling apart, Democrats are speaking in like Obama era cadences, cool, calm, collected, and bipartisan. And I like it, but I'm not the average person. And it's out of sync with the emotional temperature of the country right now. Republicans are always campaigning like it's an emergency. Democrats sometimes use the language of emergency, but campaign more like it's a board meeting. And there's this mismatch in tone that's jarring and costly. And right now, we do have an emergency. Democrats talk Republican chaos, but then behind the scenes, the right is actually incredibly disciplined. They run this coordinated media machine that drives a single narrative across cable, YouTube, podcasts, and TikTok. Democrats tweet, send out press releases, and kind of hope MSNBC picks up the story. It's not a fair fight because Democrats are fighting as if the political environment is one that hasn't existed for more than a decade. So what does the Democratic Party make people feel and hope? What about dignity and all of this? And usually it's kind of a bland managerialism. Here's our 12-point plan for expanding access to opportunity. Okay, it could be a great plan, but what does it mean? Why should someone care right now? There's an emotionality that is missing. And if you can't connect emotionally, you lose even if you're right. And Democrats are right on a lot of these issues. Progressive energy tends to scare Democratic leadership. Gen Z activists and labor organizers and independent creators, these should be core assets. And often they're treated like sort of PR liabilities. And there's always this fear. Will it sound too far left? Or will it whatever? But that question only matters if you don't know what you stand for in the first place. The party's kind of constant self-censorship will often turn very good, bold ideas into pretty lukewarm slogans. And then enthusiasm turns into like, yeah, I guess that's better. I don't know. So let me say this plainly. There are specific issues here that need to be solved. Now, I think sort of cautiously optimistically, Democrats have not really known how to work with independent media. Sometimes, like they reach out. Some of them used to appear on this show, and I appreciate that. But showing up on a podcast October 15th really isn't a media strategy. It's a guest appearance. And Republicans are building these media empires, ecosystems, grooming influencers, and they have the digital machine, while Democrats still are treating media as a place to send talking points. And so to the extent that Democrats are figuring that out, and listen, I'm in some group chats and creator summits and strategy Zooms, and there is a change that is starting, and I'm cautiously optimistic about that. But too often, the relationship with independent media is not one that's really going to help Democrats win. So let's step back for a second. What we need here is a plan. There needs to be a theory of change, a reason to believe. And this is not a call certainly not a call to give up on Democrats. I mean, it's the opposite. I believe that right now, the values of the Democratic Party are much better for the country than those of the Republican Party. They're more workable. They're economically more justifiable. They're morally more justifiable. It's just that that's not enough. And so if Democrats don't fix their tone and their strategy and their relationship to the voters that they claim to fight for, they're going to lose again. Because working class voters did say, to a great enough degree that Kamala Harris lost, and Democrats lost the House and the Senate just months ago, Democrats did say, working class voters rather said, I'm not super impressed with what the Democratic Party is offering here. So Trump is not the ceiling of Republican extremism. He's the floor. It could get worse. And I don't want to wake up in a world where the next version that's even worse in 2026 or 2028 wins by even more. So this is the starting point. This is the starting point. Let me know what you think. When it was time for a new mattress, I didn't want to gamble on something generic. I had heard about Helix. I liked that they customized the mattress based on how you sleep. I'm mostly a stomach sleeper, so I took the quiz and ended up with a model that felt tailored to me. I've had it for years. What I notice is I don't wake up with back stiffness. I don't wake up with shoulder pain. I don't toss and turn looking for a comfortable position. It's just better than my old mattress. It's more supportive, but it's still comfortable. Another thing I like about Helix is that there's no one size fits all approach. It's really tailored to you in terms of firmness as well. It's made a difference for me, and I'm thrilled to be partnering with them. And right now, Helix is running a huge sale, 27% off site wide, plus a free bedding bundle. That's a sheet set and a mattress protector with any Luxe or Elite mattress order. Go to helixsleep.com/Pacman to check it out. The link is in the description.